What's up, guys? I've got a fun new build for you guys today. It is a poison spellcaster build using physical spells. This is a super fun build. I've been having a lot of fun on this build. It has a very comfortable feeling play style, one button play style. Has great damage, great survivability. It's fast as well since we've got blink on the build. That makes it great for farming temples, great for crystal farming. You basically just run around spamming Entangle, which on its own has great damage, has great area coverage, and that triggers our cast on critical, which we have socketed with Thunderstorm and Bone Cage. Thunderstorm is going to water our plants, help them deal more damage. It's going to shock enemies as well. And Bone Cage deals a lot of damage, and it's going to be pinning enemies. And then all of our spells are going to be poisoning enemies on hit on this build 100% of the time, because we are using the Apex Supremacy Voodoo Focus, which was introduced this league. It has that nice line on there that says 100% chance to poison on hit with spell damage. Using this focus means we don't have to worry about investing in poison chance in other places on the build. We can focus more on scaling damage and stuff like that. Also, using this focus paired with our Ascendancy, since we are playing the Pathfinder Ascendancy, we've got the Overwhelming Toxicity node here that doubles the number of poisons we can inflict on an enemy. So this paired with some of the other notables on the passive tree, we are able to stack up to 6 stacks of poison on an enemy at a time, which is going to dramatically boost our damage output. Now, another fun thing that we're doing on this build is, since we deal both physical and chaos damage on this build, because our spells deal physical damage and poison deals chaos damage, we are taking advantage of a double curse setup by using the Whispers of Doom keystone. And we're going to be using both vulnerability and despair. Vulnerability is going to reduce enemy armor, and despair will reduce enemy chaos resistance. So this is a really nice double curse setup to use against bosses, to give us a ton more damage against bosses. Now we're going to be using life to cast our skills on this build. So life instead of mana. Because of that, we're going to be using the Covenant Altar Robe, which gives us spell damage leech as life, as well as giving us life remnants. So when we kill enemies, they're going to be dropping little life remnants. When we pick those up, they're going to heal us, and that can even overflow our life, which is going to give us really good sustain so we can keep casting our skills. As far as our defenses, our primary defensive layer on this build is going to be Energy Shield. However, we are going to be also using Mind Over Matter, the Mind Over Matter keystone, which gives us all damage is taken from mana before life. Since we're not using mana to cast our skills on this build, by taking Mind Over Matter, that makes our mana pool act as an extra life pool that helps to protect our life. So our mana protects our life, which is a really nice defensive layer to have on the build. It also improves our overall survivability, improves our effective health pool, so we can take more damage overall. And if you can afford a Vertex Helm that has a Spirit enchant like the one I have here, then you can also run Mana Remnants on the build as well, which is going to help you to recoup your mana more quickly and even overflow your mana for an even larger life pool. Now for my build personally, I have invested a lot into this build because I was having a lot of fun on it and had a lot of currency, so I just wanted to invest in it and see kind of how far I could push this build. But this build is actually pretty budget friendly as well. So I've included a Mobalytics guide in the description of this video, so you guys can check that out. I've included both a more expensive version of the build as well as a budget version of the build, so you guys can pick and choose what you want to do there. And I've given options for gear swaps and things depending on what your budget looks like. You can kind of go for invest more or less into this build as you see fit. So with that, we can go ahead and get into the skill gems. Now the skill gems, the primary self-cast ability that we're going to be using on this build is going to be Entangle. So we're going to run around, cast Entangle, and that's going to proc everything else that we do with the build. So Entangle is our main ability. With this, we are going to socket that with Accelerated Growth 2. This gives us little explosions, so the vines deal little explosions, and the damage of Accelerated Growth is based on the level of the entangle. So by boosting entangle's level, you also boost the level of Accelerated Growth. We also have this socketed with Branching Fissures 2 for more fissures. Normally when you cast this skill, you have one fissure that comes out, but this causes it to branch into 3 separate fissures, so it's going to give us more area coverage. We also have socketed Ulnatol's Embrace on here. Ulnatol's Embrace gives us gain as extra physical damage, or gain 40% of physical damage as extra chaos, as well as break armor. Since poison is scaled based on both physical and chaos damage, this has nice synergy with the poison aspect of the build. If you cannot afford an Ulnatol's Embrace, you can just socket Heft in here. That would be the next best thing to socket in here, and that would work just fine. Then the next thing I have socketed is Zenith 2. Zenith 2 is a really nice support gem to use here because it gives us 30% more damage when you're above 90% of your maximum mana. And since we don't cast with our mana stays over 90% most of the time on this build, which means we're going to almost always be getting that 30% more damage bonus. And as you can see, if I pull this off, the damage goes down a lot without Zenith 2. So it's actually, of all the support gems I have on here, Zenith 2 gives me the most damage. Then the last one we're using here is Atalui's Bloodletting. This gives us life tap, so we can cast the skill with life instead of mana. And it also gives us gain as extra physical damage based on the life cost of the skill. So once again, we are getting a damage boost from that, in addition to it allowing us to cast with life. We've got vulnerability on the build as well, vulnerability and despair. As I mentioned before, we're using this double curse setup. We are using the same support gems in both curses. So I've got heightened curse in here for more magnitude, magnified area, cursed ground, life tap so we can cast it with life instead of mana, and prolonged duration so it just lasts a little bit longer. For our cast on critical setup, I've got a level 21 cast on critical with 23% quality. It's a double corrupted version. That just reduces the, when you add quality to cast on crit, it reduces the spirit requirement for it. We also have Diala's Desire socketed in here to reduce the spirit. The spirit cost of my cast on crit is down to 78, which allows us to get blink and mana remnants on the build. For cast on crit, I've got this socketed with Thunderstorm and Bone Cage as the 2 abilities that it procs. Thunderstorm, you want to try to get that to a minimum of level 18. Mine is level 20. I have a level 11 Thunderstorm socketed in here, and then it gains 9 levels from other sources, boosting that to level 20. You want it, like I said, at least level 18, because if you get a lower level version of this, it will not drench enemies. When you drench enemies, they have more chance to be shocked. So having at least a level 18 version in here is going to help you more efficiently shock enemies. I find even fighting like pinnacle bosses, I shock them almost instantly by using a Thunderstorm. So like I said, you want to have that at least level 18. Thunderstorm also waters our plants as well, like I mentioned before, so they deal more damage. We've got Bone Cage socketed on here as well. Mine, it says, is level 38. That's because I'm using a Prism of Belief with level of Bone Cage skills and the Diala's Desire, which boosts the level by 1. So a really high level Bone Cage. We're getting a good amount of damage out of this. The tooltip on this, average damage per use, is 275k. It's higher than the Entangle. So a lot of damage out of Bone Cage. And then we got this socketed with Astral Projection so that the Bone Cage can be cast at the enemy's location. So normally when you cast Bone Cage, it casts in a little circle around your character, but this allows you to cast it at the location of an enemy. So essential to have Astral Projection on here. Then we've got Diala's Desire as well. This one's essential because it reduces the spirit requirements for the ability for cast on crit. So cast on crit, 23% quality, has 90 spirit requirement. This brings it down to 78. And then we also get +1 to level of, Bone Cage, Thunderstorm, and everything like that. So Diala's Desire is essential here. And then life tap in here, so everything is being cast with life instead of mana. Got Blink as well, Blink is socketed with Atziri's Impatience for better cooldown recovery rate, so we can cast it more often, and rapid casting too. And then we also got Mana Remnants on here as well. Mana Remnants is difficult to get on the build unless you have another source of spirit, which I'll talk about in a second here. But Mana Remnants is really nice for quality of life on the build because if you don't use Mana Remnants, you're going to end up having to keep a close eye on your mana while you're mapping and stuff. And anytime your mana goes down, you're going to have to use a mana potion. Whereas with Mana Remnants, anytime you kill enemies, they drop Mana Remnants that restore your mana. It can overflow your mana as well to boost your life pool, your mana pool, increasing your effective health pool as well. So Mana Remnants is really nice if you can get it on the build. So there's a couple different ways you can play this. In terms of the spirit requirements, the cheapest way to play the build, if you can't even afford an amulet with spirit on it, then what I would do is just play cast on crit. The minimum you need to play this build is to have cast on critical on here. So you don't need any spirit on any of your gear if you want to just play cast on crit. So that's one route to go. If you're doing that, you don't even need Diala's Desire either. But if you want to play like cast on crit and blink, or cast on crit and Mana Remnants, then you'll want to get spirit on your amulet. And then if you want to run all three, what I've done is I have spirit on my amulet, and I got a Vertex Mask with a spirit enchant on it. So that's what's necessary in order to run all three of these. Okay, and then I do have, I have Mana Remnants socketed with Harmonic Remnants 2 for more remnant. You can pick up the remnants from further away. Remnant Potency gives them more, an increased effect. You get more life, or more mana back when you grab those remnants. And then I have Frostwall on here as well. Frostwall is not part of the build. I just have this on here for temples because occasionally there are mobs in the temple that sometimes don't spawn in. They kind of bug out, and they don't. They're some of the construct monsters in the Golden Works rooms. They won't spawn in, and you can't complete the room if they don't spawn in. If you cast Frostwall on them, though, they will spawn in, and then you can kill them. So Frostwall is just a nice to have there. Spellslinger, you don't need a Spellslinger wand for this build, but it is nice if you can afford it. I have Entangle on here. You can cast, it'll store enough energy for you to cast Entangle 5 times instantly, which, it gives a nice little boost of damage. Or if you have a lot of enemies around you, you can just pop that real quick, and it'll help take them out a little bit faster, proc your cast on crit a little bit more. But not necessary. I have it socketed with Branching Fissures, Zenith 2, and Life Tap. Unleash is an ability that I get from my second weapon set, Staff. Unleash, what it does is it empowers a spell to repeat twice. So I can just show you guys what that looks like. Normally when you cast Entangle, you get 3 fissures like that. But if I cast Unleash first, and then cast Entangle, I get a lot more fissures. So I'm just going to get a lot more damage out of it. I usually cast that before I jump into a boss fight. Like right before the boss spawns in, I'll cast Unleash and then hit Entangle to get a little boost of damage there. And then Life Remnants, or for Unleash, we have that socketed with Life Tap and Cooldown Recovery too. And then Life Remnants I have socketed with the same thing as Mana Remnants, Remnant Potency 3, and Harmonic Remnants 2. Okay, we can go ahead and get into the gear. For the gear, we want a really good physical wand, as good a physical wand as you can get. Stat priority on this is you want to get plus level of physical spell skills. Plus 5 is ideal. You can settle for plus 4 if you're on a budget. Second priority is going to be increased spell physical damage or increased spell damage. So one or the two of those, or both of them, if you can afford it. And then next priority is increased crit hit chance for spells as high as you can get. Then increased cast speed or critical damage bonus, whichever you can get. Critical damage bonus will probably give you more damage output, but it's more expensive. So, get what you can there. And then beyond that, I would say next priority is to get gain damage as extra lightning damage, because lightning damage helps us to shock enemies. So extra lightning damage is nice. And then beyond that, any other gain is extra elemental damage. I've got fire here. Cold is just fine as well. Okay, our next gear piece, another important gear piece is going to be our helmet. You want to get a Vertex Tribal Mask, corrupted with the cultivated mod of plus level of all skills. +4 is the best you can get. That's ideal. You can settle for +3 if you're on a budget. You also want to get increased crit hit chance, chaos resistance, and then I really like the line skill gems have no attribute requirements. Because we're playing Pathfinder and we are going to be using the Traveler's Wisdom node, this allows us to spec our attribute passive points into increased damage. So we're getting a lot of damage scaling out of this node. And by having less attribute requirements on our skills, like our curses, for example, require 157 intelligence. So we don't need as much intelligence, which means we can spec into more increased damage. Okay, I'll talk about the robe, the Covenant robe. The main thing here is you want to get one. Normally, when you get an uncorrupted version of this, it includes a line that says 100 spells gain life cost equal to 100% of base mana cost. So that's going to dramatically improve the life cost of the skill. So you want to get one that has a Val Cultivated mod that removes that. The best Val Cultivated mod to get is increased life cost efficiency, because it just makes it easier to sustain your spell casting. However, if you can't afford one that has life cost efficiency, those are pretty expensive now. You can just get one that has any other mod. I think you can get like life regeneration rate, stuff like that. But you want to make sure that it retains the spell damage leached as lifeline. Okay, the next most important, actually the most important gear piece on this build is the Apep Supremacy Voodoo Focus. This is a build enabling unique. This is what allows us to play this as a poison build. So we have two build enabling uniques. One is the Covenant Altar Robe that allows us to cast with life instead of mana, and then the Focus. Now, if you get an uncorrupted version of the Focus, it looks like this. It's got two pretty bad lines on there. 20% of elemental damage from hits taken as chaos damage. We definitely want to remove that line. So I would, look for one on the trade site that has that line removed with a Val Cultivation Orb, or you can try to Val Cultivate and remove it yourself. But you want to get rid of that line for sure. And then the other bad line, the other negative line, is 25% chance to be poisoned. However, we can turn that into a positive for the build, and I've done that on my Focus. So I've removed the line that says elemental damage taken as chaos, and I've managed to get two really good lines on here. One is 23% increased chaos resistance, and then we also have increased magnitude of poison you inflict while poisoned. So because of the fact that I kept the chance to be poisoned line, basically what's going to happen is anytime we get hit by a monster, 25% chance they're going to poison us. Well, when we get poisoned, now we deal more poison damage. So that is an offensive way to play this build. You can decide, if you don't want to go the more offensive route like I've done here, you can go more defensive route. In order to play the more defensive route, what you would do is you can either get one of these focuses with the Val Cultivated mod that removes the 25% chance to be poisoned, and then you just don't have to worry about being poisoned at all. Or what you can do is just use an antidote charm, a poison charm like this one. This one actually gives you life and mana back when it procs. So because you're going to be getting poisoned all the time, this charm is going to go off all the time, which is going to give you life and mana back. So that's kind of a more defensive option. Okay, next most important gear piece on the build is going to be our amulet. For our amulet, the most important line here is +3 to level of all spell skills. Next most important line is Spirit. Spirit enables us to run, multiple Spirit skill gems. So, as high a Spirit as you can get on the amulet. You need at least 40 if you want to run Cast on Crit and Blink. You can get a lower Spirit one if you want to run Cast on Crit and Mana Remnants. And then if you want to run all three, you want to get a Vertex Mask with that Spirit Enchant. The Spirit Enchant makes this a lot more expensive, but if you do want to use all three, you'll need a Vertex Mask with the Spirit Enchant on it. Okay, so spell skills, Spirit. Next most important lines are going to be defensive lines. So maximum energy shield is good. Maximum mana is nice as well, because once again, mana is part of our life pool. So getting mana helps us survive better. Then for our suffixes, critical damage bonus is the best line you can get. Critical hit chance is really good as well. Cast speed is also really good. And then, you know, if you need it, you can solve resistances on your amulet. And intelligence is also good as well, because once again, since we're using Traveler's Wisdom, if we can meet our attribute requirements on our gear, then that means more points we can put into 5% increased damage on the tree. So you see on my ring, one of my rings, I've got intelligence. So you could get intelligence on the amulet as well. For our rings, most important line to get on a ring is increased cast speed. So both of my rings have cast speed. We want to solve resistances as we can on rings. Then intelligence is good as well. Once again, intelligence equates to more damage for our build. Rarity is nice to have. I'm sitting at about 100% rarity on this build. Maximum mana, once again, a defensive line. And then that line, increased spell damage while on full energy shield is also really nice. That's a Kurgle mod that's actually very easy to get on your rings if you want that. Gloves are an important, a nice gear piece as well, mainly because of one of the runes we can use in gloves. We get increased magnitude of damaging ailments, which boosts our poison damage. So that's a nice rune to have here. If you can't afford a 2-socket one, I would go with this rune first. And then if you can't afford a 2-socket one, socket in cast speed. Now, mods on our gloves, we're going to be looking for energy shield, as much energy shield as we can get. Mana is nice as well for more defenses. Then, you know, resistances. Chance to gain Arcane Surge on critical hit is really nice, because Arcane Surge gives us a bunch of cast speed. So that's really nice, and we crit a lot, so we have pretty constant uptime on Arcane Surge in combat. For our boots, movement speed, energy shield, resistances, rarity as well. You can put rarity on your boots. For our belt, Headhunter, you want to get one with the resistance enchant. You can get double resistance enchants on these. You can get resistance and energy shield like I have. A couple good options there. I will briefly talk about flasks. Life and mana flasks, you want to get ones that have instant recovery on them. That's just really nice to have, because if you're like, let's say let me replenish my flask real quick. If I'm like casting skills and my life runs low, having instant recovery allows me to get my life back right away, instead of having to wait for the flask to slowly refill my life before I can cast again. Boom, I can get my life back instantly and just keep casting. And then same for mana. You know, if you take damage to your mana, then you can instantly get it back with an instant recovery mana flask. So that's what I recommend. For our charms, I highly recommend a stun charm. You know, we're using blink on this build. If you blink into the middle of a pack, occasionally you'll get stunned, which is just kind of annoying. So nice to have a stun charm. Thawing charm, a freeze charm, also nice to have. Getting frozen sucks in this game, so do recommend having a freeze charm. And then beyond that, you know, I have a rite of passage. You don't need a rite of passage. I have one with Spirit of the Wolf, which gives me armor break and skill speed. But you can go with one, you know, if you can't afford one of those. If you want to go the more defensive route, use Arakali's Gift. And then if you want to go the more offensive route, where you want to be poisoned on this build, then I would go with either a bleed charm or a ignite charm. Okay, so that is the gear. We can get into the passive tree. For a passive tree, I'll go over the Ascendancy first. First thing we want to grab is going to be Path of the Sorceress. This allows us to start at the Sorceress location, starting location on the tree. Since we're a Spellcaster, starting here is very nice. We save a lot of travel points by not starting over here and instead getting to start here. So this is really nice. You also get extra passive skill points. And then Traveler's Wisdom, which once again we can use to socket more damage in. Then we're going to be grabbing Overwhelming Toxicity, so we can inflict twice as many stacks of poison on enemies. Once again, we can inflict 6 stacks of poison on this build. And then we're going to grab Relentless Pursuit. This is the lowest priority, but that gives us our speed is unaffected by slows, which is just very good quality of life for the build. You know, Temp Chains, Chill, those are going to have no effect on us. Okay, before we get into like the full passive tree, I'm going to go over the jewels. The jewels that we're using are very powerful on this build. So I've got 2 Time Lost Sapphires. This one gives me a ton of crit chance and a ton of Magnitude of Ailments. So all of the notables in range are going to give me, you know, every single notable gives me 14% crit chance, 14% crit chance, 14% crit chance, 14. That's a lot of increased crit chance. And then we're going to be getting a lot of Magnitude of Ailments as well. So we have Magnitude of Ailments you inflict, also Magnitude of Ailments you inflict with critical hits. Magnitude of Ailments is not only going to benefit our poison, but it's also going to benefit our shock as well. So when we shock enemies with our Thunderstorm, normally when you shock enemies, they take 20% more damage. I think on this build, I think they take like 32 or 34% more damage, so big benefit to our shock effect. The other Time Lost jewel I'm using here is crit damage bonus, so double crit damage bonus lines, Magnitude of Ailments, and Energy Shield on this one. So we got 5 notables here that are giving us a lot of benefit. The notables themselves on this part of the tree benefit us, and then there's double benefit coming from the fact that we're using a Time Lost Sapphire here. Okay, for the other jewels we're using, I do have a Megalomaniac. I got a really, really nice Megalomaniac. This one gives me Pure Chaos, which is this node over here that gives us gain 11% of damage as extra Chaos. Since Chaos scales our poison, this is some really nice synergy with this node here. And then this one also gives us a lot of really good synergy. Shredding Force, which gives us crit hit chance, crit damage bonus, and Magnitude of Ailments we inflict with crits. So a really, really nice Megalomaniac there. I've also got a Heart of the Well, which gives gain damage as extra Chaos. Once again, a lot of synergy with the poison aspect of the build. Crit chance, crit bonus, and gain as extra lightning. If the lowest priority line on here is the gain is extra lightning, that does help us shock enemies, but that also makes the jewel very expensive. So if you can't afford one with all 4 of these lines, get rid of the lightning line. And then last jewel is going to be, I got a Prism of Belief with +3 to level of Bone Cage skills. This boosts our Bone Cage damage a lot. You get like 100,000 more Bone Cage damage by having this jewel slotted in here. It goes from like 180k to like 280k per use. So big damage benefit there. These were actually pretty cheap. You know, the best in slot Prism of Belief would be an Entangle one, +3 to Entangle. But those are, last I looked, were like 7,000 divines. This one only cost me 40 divines. So we get a lot of bang for our buck from this, and it's actually pretty affordable. Okay, for our passive tree, since we're Energy Shield, we're going to be grabbing as much Energy Shield as we can. So Energy Shield here, here. We've got Energy Shield here, 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 and that's it. That's all the Energy Shield. So just as much Energy Shield as we can grab on the tree. Then as much crit as we can get. So we're grabbing everything crit related. Crit here, crit here, crit here. All of these crit nodes. Crit, crit, crit. And then our jewels give us crit as well. So we're getting a lot of crit on the build. And then beyond that, we're just looking for, we get some Energy Shield recharge and recovery rate. Or recharge, faster start of Energy Shield recharge here. Spell damage, you know, we're getting spell damage here, some spell damage up here, cast speed here, physical damage, crit bonus there. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going for on the tree. Also, definitely want to grab this wheel here. These are some really, really valuable poison nodes, probably the most valuable poison nodes on the tree. This one gives us a lot of poison duration. So normally when you scale number of poison stacks, you also reduce the poison duration. So you can see 25% reduced poison duration here. The Ascendancy node gives us 35% less poison duration, which is a huge penalty to poison duration. Normally poison only lasts 2 seconds, so we're reducing it a lot. So having this node helps a lot because we're constantly poisoning things. If you've inflicted 10 poisons in the last 4 seconds, then you're doubling the length of those poisons, the duration of them. We also get some poison magnitude here, so our poisons inflict more damage. And then +1 to number of poisons here. So the way we're able to get 6 stacks of poison is you have 1 base poison. So if you don't spec anything into poison, you can inflict 1 poison. This gives us 2, so +1 there. And then we anoint on our amulet stacking toxins. So on our amulet, we have anointed stacking toxins, which gives us that +1 to number of poisons as well. So that's how we get to 3. And then our Ascendancy doubles that, so we get 6 poisons. Now, normally, when you're playing a poison build, all of the poison stuff is over here. I tried building this by starting over here and grabbing a bunch of the poison nodes, but we still need these nodes up here. It just really didn't work out. I couldn't make it work starting in this area. So the way we're scaling poison, instead of grabbing all these poison nodes on the tree, like here, these damaging ailment nodes here, there's more poison over here. Instead of going for all of that stuff, we're getting our poison magnitude from our jewels primarily, and these nodes here. Okay, so that is the build. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any questions on the build, feel free to drop a comment in the description, comment down below. I read through all the comments. I respond to them all. Check out the build guide. I wrote a build guide and put on Mobilytics. Once again, that has both a budget version and an expensive version of the build, so check that out. I'll include a POB link as well, so you can see how the damage is scaling. However, POB is not fully updated. So, for example, you cannot. I found a workaround for this, but on POB, you can't put in these 5% damage nodes. So your damage numbers are going to be way lower when you look at POB. If you look at the POB link I've included, what I did was I just added all these damage nodes up, and I put a line on my amulet that says increased, like 170% increased damage or something, and that's to account for these nodes. So I think the numbers in my POB are accurate. You guys can play around with that as well. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, I will be, please drop me a like, drop me a subscribe. Definitely plan on making more PoE content, more build guides in the future. I recently made a video on the temple, how to, it's a kind of an instructional guide on how to, run a super juiced Giga temple while also running at Zeri as well, for increased profits. So if you haven't seen that already, go check out that video. Also, I'm going to be streaming. On this character, my temple kind of sucked. So I recently destabilized the entire thing, and I'm starting it over from scratch. So I'm going to be streaming over the next couple of days, myself building a brand new Giga temple from scratch. So if you guys are interested in seeing me do that on this character, then come tune into my stream. So with that, I'm going to head out. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. All right, peace.